Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Grace Holland. Joined today by Fernandez to talk about the World Cup, which is, of course, very exciting. There's so much going on, I feel, in the sports world right now, but why not add one more thing?
Not just one more thing, Grace, like the biggest thing.
Arguably the biggest.
The Super Bowl times like 5 for the vast majority of the world.
Right. So, it starts on Thursday, if you didn't know. And we're really going to keep this not just insider soccer stuff. If you just are interested in, a huge international sport and big events going on. So happens on Thursday and happening in the U.S., which is exciting, right?
Exactly. So this is the first time the World Cup has ever been played in 3 countries, is my understanding. So you've got the majority of the host sites are in the United States, and then you've got some host sites in Canada as well as in Mexico. In fact, the very first game on Thursday that you mentioned is going to be played in Mexico City, as I look at my notes here. Mexico hosts South Africa at Estadio Azteca, so that'll be great. And then U.S. faces Paraguay on Friday in Inglewood at SoFi Stadium. So kind of getting off to a quick start, and it's going to be a hefty World Cup, Grace.
Right. So for people who maybe haven't paid attention to a World Cup before, what do they need to know?
So it starts off with round robin play, right, where you have group stages where you're playing each of those teams in that group, and then the team that normally has the best results from a points perspective advances into the knockout round. From there, it's classic tournament stuff. But the thing is, this year they have increased the number of teams that are in the World Cup. It's like the NCAA tournament. 50% increase from the last time the World Cup was happening in 2022. So that is 48 total teams. So that means because of this increase, there is going to be 40 more matches over the course of the entire time. And for those that are interested in the timeline here in the schedule, right? Group stage starts June 11th and goes until June 27th. And then you have the knockouts from June 28th until July 19th. But you go essentially from June 11th until I think it's July 8th with no days without the beautiful game, which is ridiculous. If you like soccer, if you love sports in general, but this is going to be an amazing stretch of time.
It sounds, as someone who's not like a super soccer fan, but as you said, someone who's sort of a casual sports fan, it sounds a lot like March Madness in the way that you're describing,
sure, yeah.
The way that the tournament's going to work, but bigger, obviously.
Yeah.
So what are some of the rules to it? I believe there's some changes this year.
There are, and I think for those who follow along with the World Cup pretty consistently, these are kind of the details we want to be getting into, because there are changes, right? They're minute rules, but they're rules that you could definitely see eventually having an impact on a game, right? If you watch American football, for example, it's like, oh, that pass interference rule they changed in the offseason, all of a sudden that's what determines who goes to the NFC Championship game, something like that. So in general, most of these rules were put in place to speed up the game, was the reasoning that was given. So, for example, when players are, if they're delaying throw-ins or goal kicks, right? Maybe they're trying to kill a little bit of time, it's close to the end of a game, you're going to get a countdown. The officials will give a 5-second countdown kind of clock, and then that could result in the other team getting possession. Players will also have 10 seconds to leave the field when subs happen, which, depending on how aware they are, right, you could be running a good little chunk of time there. Once again, also to pick up the pace, if the player fails to leave the field, then the replacement cannot join until the next stoppage time that occurs 1 minute after the delay. So these are small things, but how sports work, right? That's like the drama always finds a way to unfold. I could totally see where randomly, you have this, round of 16 matchup that ends up being determined because of a situation like this, or it ends up playing a massive point that leads to a free kick, and that's the goal. There were also a couple of new red card offenses that stem directly from incidents that have happened recently.
Okay.
So, for example, and I'm sure a lot of players will not do this because it's been there's been such a spotlight on it, but you're not allowed to cover your face during any kind of confrontation with an opponent for potential red cards. And the reason why is Benfica winger, and I hope I'm not butchering his name, but Gianluca Prestiani, he had this confrontation with one of Real Madrid's players, Vinicius Jr., during a Champions League match earlier this year. And what he said ended up resulting in him getting a 6-match ban for homophobic conduct. So you have like these situations that FIFA is very much aware of and is monitoring very tightly. So that's an example of this. Also, if a team leaves the field like in protest. So an example is Senegal left the field during the African Cup of Nations final earlier this year because they didn't agree with the penalty decision. If you do that, the team will face some kind of discipline as well. So those are kind of some of the big picture things. Another thing to keep an eye out for, because we've just got hot conditions in this part of the world in North America. There are going to be some mandatory water stoppage times about halfway through each half. So keep an eye out for that. A lot to keep an eye out for. It's exciting. It's like a month and a half of the most popular sport in the world.
Yeah, and I've already started to see the memes and things pop up of people making jokes about particularly the European players potentially suffering in the southern heat, because a lot of these games are being played in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. There's one team that's training here in North Carolina in Greensboro.
Norway,
right?
I believe. Yeah. Okay. So like you've seen photos of people just like laying out on the grass and just like trying to soak up the sun, because it's so much different than maybe it's Nordic countries or even like the UK. If you're a team like England. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. I think there are a lot of like just fun storylines like that. You always hear jokes of Americans traveling abroad and kind of like the, culture shock of it all, and the way they kind of sometimes, make these mistakes and these faux pas. You're seeing, people coming to the States and having these experiences of like, wow, it's Walmart, you know what I mean? Or
like,
wow,
oh, it really exists.
Yeah, exactly. Buc-ee's. I've seen some Buc-ee's love. I think that's one thing I would keep an eye out for, is just like fans from around the world just kind of soaking in the American experience, if you will, whether that's in the States or in Mexico or in Canada.
Let's take a quick break right there, and we'll be right back. I was at a dinner last week, and all the guys at the table were like, okay, we're asking the soccer fans, okay, so which team, what country should I root for? Who's going to win? Those sorts of storylines. So my first question would be, where does Team USA stand in all that? Mm-hmm. A lot of people might want to support the home team.
So, they are there. Team USA.
You can't win if you're not there.
That's true. That's very true. They are, so right now they're 16th in the FIFA rankings. And according to a lot of sports books, they have the 11th best title odds. That's at plus 4,000, which is a pretty long shot. But when you look at their group, they're in Group D. They aren't in a group with, say, like a Spain or a France or an Argentina. In their group is it's the USA, it's Paraguay, it's Australia, and it's Turkey. And so those are some. You can do something with that. I believe they're actually favored to leave their group and enter that knockout round. So, really, if you're the States, you're going to do what you can. You're going to, you try and get to the knockout round and you see what happens. There's obviously this big difference between like some of these like title favorites and the U.S. If the U.S. were to make a deep run, it would be, pretty historic from, both a U.S. perspective as well as just like from a soccer perspective in general. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, I think reasonable expectations for the States is to, make their way out of Group D and then go from there.
Okay. All right. So fingers crossed, some positive thoughts there. What are some of the other teams? You mentioned Spain.
Right.
Like that if they were in the USA's group, that would maybe not be so good.
No,
so I take it that means that they're pretty high on the list.
Right. Well, and remember too, with group play, it's the top two teams in each group advance to the knockout round, and then I think it's the 8 best third place teams, just like all of the groups. But yeah, Spain, Obviously, I think Spain and France are actually like tied to the top for best odds to win it all. You got like players like Kylian Mbappe for France, who he scored, gosh, what was it? I think it was 8 goals in 2022 in the World Cup final, and like he could legitimately break the record for most goals scored by a player in this World Cup. Right now, it's he's 6th, tied with Pele, I believe, for most goals scored in a World Cup like all time. And he needs 5 more to get the lead by himself, I believe. But then you've also got like Argentina. A lot of these are the kind of the classic teams, right? And that's how the World Cup often works. It's Argentina, England, Brazil, Portugal, Germany. A lot of these players and a lot of these teams that are there consistently because they have this just kind of national show of soccer. I think there's kind of this interesting, last chance type situation to watch some of the all-time greats like, Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Messi's 39, Ronaldo's 41. So it's one of these like kind of like last-ditch moments to probably see these players. Harry Kane is having like one of his best seasons for Bayern Munich. So he's going to be, getting fed by England. I think a lot of those are kind of the tip-top teams you want to keep an eye out for.
Okay, a lot of good options there. And like you said earlier, I mean, some of the excitement here is just the cultural exchange of it all.
Sure.
So it just sounds like it's going to be a fun time.
Can I give one like fun team to watch out for?
Of course, love that.
Curacao. I believe I'm saying that country correctly. First
I'll
time
let you know if you're not.
Yeah, they will. First time ever qualifying for the World Cup, and I believe it is the smallest country to ever qualify for the World Cup. 156,000 people. I've seen some really fun videos of like, them being embraced by like, the teams the places they're visiting and things like that. And their group, it's Germany, Ecuador, and the Ivory Coast. So like, I don't think they're going to be beating out Germany, but who knows how things go for them. They're just going to be kind of like one of those fun teams to watch out for. I'm sure there are going to be other like big national storylines. I mean, we've already seen some with just like the state of politics nationally in the United States, whether that be, Iran and how that team is being handled in the States, or you've seen some issues with, I believe it was a referee, and visas and things along those lines. So there are going to be fun stories to follow, and there are going to be some serious stories to follow, because ultimately this is just a melting pot of all these different world cultures coming together for the biggest sporting event in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's the World Cup for a reason. This is a global stage, and there's a lot of good and bad that comes with that. But overall, a really exciting time.
It's strap up. It's going to be a fun month and a half or so.
All right. Thank you so much, Lewis. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. That's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. You can sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.